praja janaranjana Jamuna tira vanachari Jamuna tira vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalava Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalava Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramangsa Paribrajacacharya Astotra Satta Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Hare Krishna. So I would speak in Hindi, but I can't. I know, Tora Hindi, but not enough to speak. But today's a very auspicious day. It's the Bhismastami, or the disappearance day of Bhīṣmadeva, one of the great Mahajans. And so what we're going to do today is the 9th chapter of the first canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has a long, it's all about Bhīṣmadeva and his passing away and his instructing Yudhisthira Maharaj and his being in the presence of Lord Krishna when he leaves this world. So I thought we would go over this chapter. There's so many instructions, so many wonderful instructions, so many wonderful purports by Srila Prabhupada here, and we'll do like an overview of that, and and maybe not cover all of the verses, because we only go until what time? 6 o'clock? No, 9. All right. So in that case, we don't have so much time. 9:15. Acha, I get more time by the mercy of Mohan Rupa Prabhu. Acha, because it's Sunday. All right. 9:15 morning or night? Hare Krishna. So let's begin. Sukadeva Goswami said, being afraid because of having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhisthira went to the scene of the massacre. There, Bhīṣmadeva was lying on a bed of arrows, about to pass away. At that time, all the brothers followed him. All his brothers followed him on beautiful chariots drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vyas and rishis like Domya, the learned priest of the Pandavas, and others. O sage amongst the Brahmanas, that's Shonaka Rishi, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, also followed, seated on a chariot with Arjuna. Thus, King Yudhisthira appeared very aristocratic, like Kuvera surrounded by his companions, the Guyakas. So you could just imagine, there's so many, everyone came. Later, there's another verse, all the sages from the universe came. Krishna was there, the Pandavas were there. Everyone came for this amazing event of Bhīṣmadeva leaving this world. Seeing him lying on the ground like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava King Yudhisthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before him. So even Krishna paid obeisances to Bhīṣmadeva. Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, Bhishma, all the great souls of the universe, namely rishis among the demigods, brahmanas and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. So again, and then there's another verse that lists all the great rishis that came. Bhishmadeva, who was the best among the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who were assembled there, for he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes that he was certainly unable to welcome and receive them physically, right? Not possible, because he was neither at his home nor in a normal, healthy condition. But he was quite fit by the activities of his sound mind, and therefore he could utter sweet words with hearty expressions, and all of them were well received. So there's so many instructions just there, right? That sometimes we may not be able to follow all the etiquettes because we may be in a situation where it's just not possible. But what is Krishna called? Bhava Grahi Janardhan, right? Where he accepts the essence of our bhava, of our devotion, of our love. So here, Bhishmadeva, he's lying on a bed of arrows. He can't welcome everyone, give them a glass of water, give them a nice seating place. But still, he can practice the essence. Right? He can practice the essence of it with his sound mind by welcoming everyone with sweet words. Right? Just like that verse. What's that verse? Smartavya satatam Vishnu, Bhismartavya najatu chit. Sarva vidi nisheharashur etayar eva kinkara. That the principle is to remember Krishna and never forget him. And the details, they are kinkaras, they're servants of that principle. So he may not have been able to follow all the details, but he followed the principle. I remember when I was learning that verse for the first time, I remembered it by saying, Smartavya, if you're smart, you'll remember Vishnu. Smartavya. Anyway. So let's continue. And by the way, if you have any questions or comments, we can do it. You can raise your hand during the talk because we're going through the whole chapter. Or we'll see if we can get through the whole chapter. I get confused which glasses I have. Okay. The sons of Maharaj Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhīṣmadeva congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. Bhīṣmadeva said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls had to suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were growing up, she suffered a great deal because of your actions. In my opinion," so he's trying to say, the question is, how could this happen to great devotees? Right? How could there be so many tribulations to such great devotees? It's one of the great lessons in this chapter. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. Otherwise, how could there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhisthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Bhima, the great fighter with a club, and the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all, the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that despite the power of pious acts, the power of personalities, the power of expert management, and the power of weapons under the direct supervision of Lord Krishna, the Pandavas suffered so many practical reverses, which can only be explained as due to the influence of... Anyone listening? Kala. Thank you very much. Krishna Priya Prabhu. Kala. Inevitable time. Kala is identical with Lord Krishna. What's that verse? Kaloshmi. You have another verse, another Shastra. No problem. Kala is identical with Lord Krishna, and therefore the influence of Kala indicates the inexplicable. What does inexplicable mean? Cannot explain, yes. The inexplicable wish of the Lord himself. There is nothing to be, this is a very important sentence, there is nothing to be lamented when a matter is beyond the control of any human being. There is nothing to be lamented when a matter is beyond the control of any human being. Don't we sometimes say, oh, in the back of our mind or in the front of our mind, we're thinking, if only this would happen, or if only I could change so-and-so's mind. I think one of the hardest things in this world is to change someone else's mind. Right? Anyone ever had that experience? Yeah. Right? And so here, Krishna, Bhīṣmadeva and Srila Prabhupada, they're telling us that, so many things are just, what is it in Hindi? Kya kare? What to do? It's beyond our control. And rather we should, smartavya, remember Lord Krishna and say, the devotee thinks in many different ways. What's probably the most famous verse about how we should think when challenging situations come upon us? Very good. You want to say it? You have a microphone? Tatenu kampam shukshamikshamano. What's the next line? Go ahead, Prabhu. Loudly, you have a loud voice. Jiveti yomukti padai sadayabha. Right. So this is, Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Devotion that this verse, this one verse, should be the guide for all devotees. Right? Anyone know that? Anyone know that purport? Should I find it really quickly? It's so wonderful. Excuse me, I have to do my. But it's so wonderful. It's worth saying what Prabhupada says. Nectar of Devotion, 10th chapter. Expecting the Lord's mercy. Prabhupada said, then he quotes that verse, and then he said, I'll read the English. My dear Lord, any person who is constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering his respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. Right? Jiveti yomukti padei sadhayabhak. It automatically happens to someone who has, one enters the spiritual world if they have this mentality. Prabhupada says, this statement of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam should be the guide for all devotees. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reaction of his past misdeeds. No conditioned soul is free from such reactionary experiences because material existence means continued suffering or enjoying of past activities. If one has finished his material activities, then there is no more birth. This is possible only when one begins Krishna-conscious activities, because such activities do not produce reaction. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he is not going to take birth again in this material world. So this is a very, isn't that significant if Prabhupada says that this verse should be the guide for all devotees? Right? So raise your hand if you had any reverses in your life. Only a few of you. Okay. Nothing in Mahamantravu, your life is so perfect, no problem. Very good. Yes, so they have to happen. They have to happen to all of us. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. At least, maybe no more Janma, but at least in this life, Mrityu, Jara, and Vyadhi is going to happen. Right, doctor? Yes? Vyadhi is happening? Yes, okay. So, this should be our guide, that we expect Krishna's mercy. And Prabhupada mentions that we think that it should have been much worse, but Krishna's been very kind, he's minimized it. So in this way, the devotee is like a pucka businessman, right? Because a really good businessman makes money when the market is up and makes money when the market is down. Right? You know, in selling stocks, they call it shorting stocks. When you make money when the market goes down. Right? So there's a way of doing that. So similarly, a devotee makes advancement when things are going smoothly and when things are going roughly. In either way, a devotee makes advancement. So Bhīṣmadeva is explaining this to the Pandavas, that he's just saying, well, this must be somehow Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's mercy. Now I have to go back to the verse we were on, first canto. Chapter 9, I think we're around here someplace. Okay, so now continuing, okay? O King, no one can know the plan of Lord Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. O best among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhisthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord, excepting the inconceivable plan. What does inconceivable mean? You can't conceive it. Yeah, right, exactly. Very good. Yes, inconceivable plan of the Lord. You must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. So he's saying you have to do karma nevari karaste, you have to do your duty now that you've become the king. One sentence from Prabhupada's purport. A devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. What does ungrudgingly mean? What does it mean to have a grudge? Right? If somebody tells you, Prabhuji, can you get some prasadam for Vraja Bihari Das? Oh, okay. Because you really wanted to take prasadam, but instead you had to bring prasadam. So you're not very happy about it, but you do it. Right? That's grudgingly. So ungrudgingly means with full enthusiasm, yes. So here he says, Prabhupada writes, a devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. Is that easy to do? No. Because if it was easy, then that verse that Prabhuji quoted, Tatenu Pampam, Tatenu Kampam Shukshamikshimano, would be easy. Going back to God, it would be easy. Jiveti yo mukti padei sadayabhak. It would be a piece of cake. But it's not so easy to go back to the spiritual world, and one reason is it's not so easy to see Krishna's benediction when we're going through tribulations. Sometimes we have, you know what is a perfect vision? What is it called? 2020, right? If you have perfect vision, it's 2020. So sometimes we see Krishna's mercy with 2020 hindsight. Later we say, oh, that was Krishna's mercy. But when we're going through that tribulation, it's harder. That takes some real depth of Krishna consciousness to do that. Prabhupada tells that. I don't think we'll repeat the story, but he tells the story about the king and the minister, right? And the king lost his finger, and the minister told him it was Krishna's mercy, right? You all know that verse. So at that time, the king did not see it as Krishna's mercy and was very upset. But later he said, oh, that was Krishna's mercy. So I think in our life, do we ever have that experience? Yes? When we're going through something, why is Krishna doing this to me? And then later we say, oh, that was Krishna's mercy. So one way we could see making advancement in Krishna consciousness is the time between why is Krishna doing this to me and yes, this is Krishna's mercy. That time becomes less and less. Until eventually, immediately, we say, oh, Krishna's mercy. Yeah? Yes. Okay. So should we carry on? We're on verse 18. There's only 50 verses in this chapter. So we're almost 40% through. Any questions or comments right now? Yes? Krishna Priya Prabhu. So many tribulations were there. Well, that's what this chapter, in one sense, that's one of the main lessons of this chapter. Even Prabhupada is just following in the footsteps of the Pandavas, right? Because they had so many problems, right? But also Srila Prabhupada says that this is a way that Krishna glorifies the devotee, right? Like if Srila Prabhupada would have come to America on the first class on a 747, right? And when he arrived in New York, there was a huge kirtan, and people were throwing money to him, and he had billions of dollars, right? And he was living in a very fancy flat in Central Park West in New York. That's okay. But the fact that he had 2 heart attacks on the way, he came on a steamship, he had 40 rupees in his pocket that even couldn't be exchanged, and he had the name of one person in Pennsylvania. Right? And look what he did. So actually it's a way of glorifying him, isn't it? That he went through those challenges, right? Like that. He said the only solace, what was his only solace? Anyone remember? When he was on the boat? Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Yeah, reading he said the nectarine pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Is that all right? Yes. Shall we? Oh, yes, Prabhu.
Like Prabhupada, in some days ago we had Prabhupada lecture. Some days ago we were hearing Prabhupada's lecture, and that Prabhupada was telling that I had $7, and that was 1 hour's expenditure.
1 hour spending, yes.
So it even more takes us that so less. And another thing I was asking that when that problem comes, when we are in that situation, we cannot understand it's Krishna's mercy or not. Sometimes it happens, it is Krishna's mercy, but we cannot understand why it happens. So how to get to that point?
Well, that's a whole nother discussion that would take too long, but it just in brief, when we're trying to help another devotee who's going through some challenges in their life, we have to be sensitive. Because sometimes if we just say, oh, Krishna's mercy, Prabhu, and they'll say, I'll give you some of Krishna's mercy. Like that, right? Because they're not maybe ready. Sometimes it takes them, right? It takes a little time for someone to come to the point of tetenu kampam, samikshmano. So sometimes it can seem a little insensitive if we just immediately say, oh, Krishna's mercy. Right? So we have to be intelligent how we help another person gradually come to that realization. Okay? So let's continue. I think we'll continue and then, is that all right? Okay. So text, we're on to 20 or so. What's this? Oh, just another point on this. Prabhupada writes, tribulations imposed upon the devotees of the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhav. Isn't that amazing? Problems in our life is a transcendental bhav between the Lord and the devotees. So could you imagine someone just broke their leg and say, this Prabhu, transcendental bhav. Right? The Lord says, quote, I put my devotee into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes purified in exchanging transcendental bhav with me. So even more to the point in this purport. Okay, continuing. O king, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be... Who's speaking? This is Bhishma still. Out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And Sridhar Swami, in his commentary, he says that Bhīṣmadeva points to Krishna when he does this. It's Krishna. Like that. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servant. Does anyone know a verse that says that Krishna is equal to everyone, but he's also more inclined to his devotees? Yeah, Krishna says, I'm equal to everyone. And he says, what? But I have special preference for my devotee. So in the purport to this, Prabhupada writes, the Supreme Lord, the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, although equal to everyone, is more inclined to his unflinching devotee, who is constantly surrendered and who knows no one else as his protector and master. Right? Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishati vishvaso gotrate varanam tata. Right? That one accepts Krishna as their maintainer and their protector. Having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's protector, friend, and master is the natural condition of eternal life. So this is something we have to work on, right? Unflinching faith that Krishna is our protector, he's our friend, and he's our master. Chai, Sisi Gornitai, Shishi Radha Parthasarthi, Shishi Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. A living entity is so made, we're created by the will of the Almighty, that he is most happy. When are we most happy? When we have gulab jamans? Right? When placing himself in that condition of absolute dependence. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam, to accept everything favorable to Krishna consciousness, reject everything unfavorable, to consider Krishna my maintainer, my protector, to be humble and to be fully surrendered. That's one answer. That's sharanagati, right? In another place, Prabhupada writes, in the first canto also, that he qualifies dependence because he doesn't want us to, my understanding, he doesn't want us to just think, okay, well, if Krishna wants me to go on book distribution today, I'll go. If not, no. But we have, man proposes, God disposes. We have to make our effort, right? Like that. One time, Srila Prabhupada was given a picture of Sri Sri Radha Kunja Bihari, the deities in Detroit. And if anyone's been to Detroit, Kunja Bihari is very Tribanga. Very Tribanga. So he's looking at the picture and he shows it to the devotees and he says, this is Krishna. He's very inclined to his devotees because he's leaning way over to Srimati Radharani. So it says here that he's more inclined to his unflinching devotees. Nice, huh? Okay, there's so much more to cover, so we have to continue. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation and by chanting the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling. Kindly await me at the moment when I quit this material body. Then Sukadeva Goswami says, Maharaj Yudhisthira, after hearing Bhishmadeva speak in that appealing tone, so he had such an appeal in such a sweet tone of voice, even he's lying on the bed of arrows, asked him in the presence of all the great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties. And Prabhupada writes that Lord Sri Krishna inspired King Yudhisthira to ask Bhishmadeva in the presence of many great sages. Now this is very important. Listen to this. So why did Yudhisthira ask Bhishma? Krishna is there. Vyasadeva is there. So many great sages are there. Why ask Bhishma? He's not a sannyasi. He's not a sage. Of course, he's a Mahajan, but he's right. He's a Kshatriya. Why ask him? So Prabhupada says, indicates that the devotee of the Lord, like Bhishmadeva, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, even Vyasadeva. So we have to always be a little careful, right? You don't judge a devotee by their externals, right? Right? What is it? What's that English saying? You can't judge a book by its cover, right? And even when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about the avoiding the offenses, and he talks about in the 26 qualities of a Vaishnava, also in Bhagavatam 29, but 26 is what we usually say. He says that one stands supreme. One is the Surup Lakshanam. What is that? Surrender to Krishna. Okay, so who's the most intelligent devotee in this room? Or you name one intelligent devotee. No, not me. Where's Rishi? Oh, Rishi Kumar Prabhu. Okay, so Rishi Kumar Prabhu, you're very intelligent. So tell us, of all the devotees in this room, who's the most surrendered? Or give me the top 10.
Start from Srila Prabhupada.
Okay. In other words, it's difficult, yeah? Because the 25 qualities Tatastha Lakshanam, they sometimes, depending on one's place in Varnashram and one's, you can judge it, but it's hard to tell somebody who, what did you say, surrender to Krishna. It's hard to put a thermometer in everyone's mouth, right? Just like when I was coming in the airport today, there was a flight from China. And so there was a long line because they had to test everybody to see if they had fever because of this virus. Yeah. So it's hard to tell. So therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, don't criticize any devotee because it's very hard to tell who's fully surrendered to Krishna. Right? So here, Yudhisthira chooses Bhishma, not Vyasadeva, to inquire. It's very significant, right? So, and Prabhupada's godbrothers sometimes made this mistake, right? They thought, he's just a householder, right? They didn't know, right? So you don't judge a book by its cover. Prabhupada continues, Yudhisthira also preferred to solve his problematic questions by asking Bhishmadeva rather than anyone else there who was seemingly more learned than Bhishmadeva. This is all due to the arrangement of the great wheel carrier, Lord Sri Krishna, for establishing the glories of his devotees. So Krishna arranges it to glorify Bhishmadeva. So there's another hint here, right? That when Krishna is actually even more pleased when we glorify his devotees than when we glorify him. Shall we continue? No? Yes. Yeah, okay. All right, okay. At King Yudhisthira's inquiry, Bhishmadeva first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. So this, I think, the Shanti Parva, is that right, of the Mahabharata? So this is a short summary of a very long description, this discussion between Yudhisthira Maharaj and Bhishmadeva in the Mahabharata. But I'll just read this one thing, very important point Prabhupada makes in the purport. Bhishmadeva advised for all human beings 9 qualifications. 9 of them. Ready? Not to become angry. Okay, so we should not become angry. Kama esha, krodha esha. Not to lie. To equally distribute wealth. To forgive. To forgive. Anyone here have someone that they still holding some grudge against? So now here it says we should forgive them. Doesn't mean we give them our debit card. That we trust them. But, it's just like my friend, because we served together in Vrindavan for many years, Kadamba Maharaj. So there's a statement by, we say in ISKCON, love and trust, right? So Maharaj says, I love everyone. Trust? You have to gain my trust. Or as President Reagan, one of the United States presidents, once said, trust but verify. Right. Okay, so to forgive. The next one wouldn't apply to us so much, especially those wearing saffron. To beget children only in one's legitimate wife. Okay, next one does apply to all of us. To be pure in mind and hygienic in body. So to be clean within and without. Not to be inimical toward anyone. To be simple. And the last one, to support servants or subordinates. Prabhupada then continues, one cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above-mentioned preliminary qualities. So this was so Prabhupada gleaned of so many things that Bhīṣmadeva told Yudhishthira, that these 9 were some essential advice to all human beings. Any questions on that? Comments? You want to ask your question now? Is there a microphone? Go ahead. I'll repeat it. It sometimes happens. Here it comes.
When mind goes disturbed, and at the same time we are preaching to our mind, but it's really difficult to control him. So what is the immediate remedy for mind? What we should do immediately?
If I knew the answer, I would be doing it myself. But we can repeat some things that Prabhupada said, right? Right? Like what did Prabhupada say? That what is the best way to get rid of someone who's staying with you and you want to get rid of them? I asked the Grihastas, if someone's staying in your house and you want to get rid of them, what do you do? Yes, but specifically? Don't exactly, Prabhuji. You like prasadam, huh? Yeah. Don't feed them. Don't feed them, then they'll go away, right? Don't starve them, yes. So Prabhupada also says, similarly, neglect the mind. Because the mind is barking all the time, right? It's always talking. What is that verse? Udred atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadiyat, atmaiva hyotmana bandhur, atmaiva viparatmanaha, right? The mind could be our friend and our enemy. And what in the 11th canto, the Advanti Brahmana, right? He says, that's what he says? Very good. I didn't know the Sanskrit, but I was going to just say the English, that he says there's no enemy. There's no problem in this world. There's no money problem. There's no problem from our past karma. There's no problem from other living entities. There's only one problem. Right? And that, he says, is the mind. Right? So Prabhupada talks about neglecting the mind. Then Prabhupada also quotes his Guru Maharaj, who says, what is it? Is it shoes in the morning and sticks at night, or sticks in the morning and shoes at night? Does anyone? But it's, do you know, Prabhu, which one does he say? Beat the mind with shoes in the morning and with the stick at night? Something like that. Anyway, the idea is to, and of course, to absorb the mind in hearing and chanting. So those are 3. Is that so? If you can do all 3, maybe it'll work. No, of course it'll work if we can follow Krishna's instructions, manmana bhava madbhakto, to engage the mind and always thinking of him. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Okay, shall we continue? Okay, because it gets even better. It gets better. The end of this chapter is Amazing. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and the activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees both briefly and extensively. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, varnashram, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. While Bhīṣmadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. And the Sanskrit is Uttarayana, right? So the day that Bhishma, he was waiting for, what was it? In the one place it says Makara Sankranti, right? But he was waiting for Uttarayana, for the sun to go into the northern hemisphere, okay? But there's also another meaning to Uttarayana. That is that he was waiting for Krishna to appear. He was waiting for that person who entered into the womb of Uttarayana. So that's a more exalted understanding. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that. Thereupon that man, this is a beautiful, very poetic translation. Thereupon that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings, and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men, stopped speaking, and being completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shone. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pain. So all the bodily pains caused by the arrows, he was relieved of. Thus, all the external activities of senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all living beings while quitting his material body. So now these are some of these beautiful prayers by Bhīṣmadeva that end this chapter. Okay? It's very beautiful prayers. Is anyone awake? Okay. All right. Okay. Well, sometimes when you read a lot, people... Yeah. Okay. Bhīṣmadeva said, okay, so imagine he's on his deathbed now. He's no longer... his mind is completely clear, right? And the pain of the arrows, Krishna has taken that away. And he's did so many things in his lifetime, and now he's just him and Krishna, right? He's kind of, in one sense, kind of blocking everyone else out, and he's just looking at Krishna. Let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were for so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Sri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes, being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending in the material world, although it is from him that the material world is created. Now this is interesting. He starts talking about Arjuna. Why would he talk about Arjuna? Sri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of the tamal tree. His body attracts everyone in the 3 planetary systems. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire fruitive activities. Now listen to this purport. Prabhupada writes that while fighting was going on between Arjuna and Bhishma, Bhishma's attraction was drawn by the glittering dress of Lord Krishna. Right? So he's shooting arrows, but he's really attracted by Krishna. Isn't that amazing? Right? And indirectly, he admitted his so-called enemy, he admired his so-called enemy for possessing the Lord as his friend. So he's glorifying Arjuna. Arjuna was always a conqueror because the Lord was his friend. Bhīṣmadeva takes the opportunity to address the Lord as Vijaya Sakhe, friend of Arjuna, because the Lord is pleased when he is addressed conjointly with his devotees who are related with him in different transcendental humors. So what are some examples of Krishna's name that are connected with devotees? Yashodanandan? Nandanandan? Radha Vallabh?
Madan Mohan.
Madan Mohan? That's okay. Vasudev, Devaki Nandan. Yeah, so many, right? Vraja Bihari? Okay. While Krishna was a charioteer of Arjuna, sun rays glittered on the dress of the Lord. So just imagine the scene in Kurukshetra. The sun rays are glittering on the dress of the Lord. And the beautiful hue means like color, created by the reflection of the rays was never forgotten by Bhīṣmadeva. Right? Never forgotten. He just saw that as so beautiful. So there's so many things he could have been focused on, but he remembers that. And okay, so let's continue. On the battlefield, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen, colored with ash, due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. And because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds on his skin dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go unto Sri Krishna. Prabhupada writes that Sri Bhīṣmadeva is a great devotee of the Lord in the relationship of servitorship. Thus, his throwing of sharp arrows at the transcendental body of the Lord is as good as the worship of another devotee who throws flowers, soft roses, upon him. Right? So, Prabhupada also writes in this purport, we won't quote it, but he says that the non-devotees don't understand how could somebody shoot arrows at the Lord, and how could it seem like they're piercing him, right? But it was all rasa. It was all, as we heard before, transcendental bhav. It was all the relationship that Krishna had with Bhīṣmadeva. So it's actually, for a devotee, it seems so wonderful. For a non-devotee, it's bewildering. But a devotee here is just saying, wow, so wonderful. Krishna even reciprocates with a warrior. Right? He doesn't make him, just play kartals and dance. Right? Right? No, if someone is a warrior, he allows him to shoot arrows at him. And it's just like us offering our flowers to Prabhupada. Nice, huh? Okay, so in obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Sri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana. And while there, he shortened the lifespan of the opposing parties by his merciful glance. So, again, the non-devotee, so that he was merciful, he killed them? He arranged for them to be killed? This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon the Lord. So Prabhupada talks about this in the purport, because one would wonder, it doesn't seem like such a nice God that he arranges for them to be killed, right? Because this is also in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. They were all finished beforehand, right? Because he shows Arjuna what's going to happen there. Going into the teeth of the universal form. Prabhupada writes, the Lord diminished the duration of the life of the opposing party by his merciful glance. It is said that all the fighters who assembled in the battle of Kurukshetra attained salvation by personally seeing the Lord at the time of their death. Therefore, his diminishing the duration of life of Arjuna's enemy does not mean that he was partial to the cause of Arjuna. Factually, he was merciful to the opposite party because they would not have attained salvation by dying at home in the ordinary course of life. Here was a chance to see the Lord at the time of death and thus attain salvation from material life. Therefore, the Lord is all good, and whatever he does is for everyone's good. Apparently, it was for the victory of Arjuna, his intimate friend, but factually, it was for the good of Arjuna's enemies. Such are the transcendental activities of the Lord, and whoever understands this also gets salvation. Do you like that point? Whoever understands this, that Krishna is all good, also gets salvation. after quitting his material body. The Lord does no wrong in any circumstance because he is absolute, all good at all times. We have a little bit more. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Microphone.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for such a nice class.
It's not over yet.
Okay. So my question is related to initial part.
Okay.
So where you said that whatever situation comes in devotee life is a mercy of the Lord. So when we fail in that situation, so how can we see that that is also a mercy?
Well,
if we cannot follow, or like for example, we go in some difficult situation or some where there is no devotee in such temple, where we miss our time we misdirect ourselves and involve in some other interest. So we wasted the time. So how can we see that that is also mercy of the Lord?
Yes, it's just like if somebody is cooking the offering to Shri Radha Parthasarthi, and they're making sweet rice, kheer, and they put salt instead of sugar, right? And then Mohan Rupa Prabhu chastises them. Prabhu, you can't offer Krishna this. And they said, it's Krishna's mercy. Everything happens by the will of the Lord. And then that devotee has to fast for 3 days. No, whatever. But so it's a good question. That we, there's two parts, just like we all know in the Damodar Lila, right? The rope was always 2 fingers, the width of 2 fingers too short, right? And the 2 parts are our endeavor and Krishna's mercy, right? So we have to make our endeavor, and we can't make our excuse that not a blade of grass moves without the Lord's sanction, Prabhu, right? It could be that Krishna's reciprocating with our insincerity, right? So we have to be very sincere, and if we are sincere and we're trying our best, then we can maybe say, okay, things are Krishna's words. But if we're neglectful, if we're not following the spiritual master's instructions, if we're affected by the lower modes of material nature, then that's not Krishna's fault. Krishna created the lower modes. We chose to take shelter of them. Right, so we have our free will. This comes up, right, in the discussion of is everything just arranged by the Lord, or is there free will? And I always like this explanation by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He said, if there wasn't free will, why would there be Shastra? Why would there be Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, do this, don't do that? If everything was just up to Krishna. So we have our role to play in especially in being sincere. Because ultimately, if we want to go back to Godhead, we have to be 100% sincere, 100% devotional, 100% faithful. To really understand Braj and to really understand Krishna's pastimes in the supreme abode of Vrindavan, it takes 100%. So, slowly we get there. Is that all right?
But that our realization will also help in future, that whatever mistake or...
Yes, and when we make... Yes, thank you for bringing that up. When we make mistakes, Prabhupada writes that a sincere devotee feels regret as soon as they make some mistake. And that regret is purifying. Right? But also we fix something, just like one time with Satsarup Maharaj and Prabhupada. Satsarup Maharaj was Prabhupada's secretary. And Prabhupada was sending an enclosure, something along with a letter. And Satsarup Maharaj forgot to do it. So Prabhupada said, and Satsarup, I'm so sorry, and Prabhupada wasn't, he wasn't satisfied with anything until Satsarup Maharaj said, I will write another letter and enclose it. And then Prabhupada said, okay. So in other words, we don't just, I'm so sorry, and then go take rest. We try to fix whatever mistake we make. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not very good to make the same mistake twice. Right? You should learn from that mistake. Okay. So let's carry on, because the last instruction, I think, is the supermost. Okay, and we're almost there, right? You say I have 16 more minutes? Yeah? Okay. But it won't take that long. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance, upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battle of Kurukshetra, because what is that? Bhishma Drona Pramukhata, right? The Bhagavad Gita says. He drove the chariot right in the face of his guru and his grandfather. This is who you have to kill. Right? Bhishma Drona Pramukhata is the Sanskrit, right? May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up his wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So, okay, I have two more things that I want to say before we end. So this is where is it? This is from a lecture Prabhupada gave in 1966, right in the very beginning. Nobody knew anything about Krishna. Okay, he's talking to new devotees. I will give you one example how Krishna sometimes breaks his promise. It is a very nice story. Krishna, when he joined Arjuna before the battle of Kurukshetra, promised, because the fight is between brothers and because both of you are my relatives, it is not my duty to join one party and not to join another. But because Duryodhana has decided to take my soldiers, not me, so I shall join you, Arjuna, but I shall not fight. I may take some work which may assist you. So Arjuna offered, whatever work you like, you can take. So he said, all right, I shall drive your chariot. So Krishna's promise was to not fight. So this is, again, Prabhupada speaking. But once on the battlefield, Arjuna was in danger when fighting Bhishma, the greatest fighter, although a very old man. Duryodhana had incited Bhishma in the midst of the war. Quote, the Pandavas on the other side are your pet grandsons. You are not fighting fully. That was the complaint of Duryodhana. So in order to encourage him, Bhishma said to Duryodhana, all right, tomorrow I shall finish all these 5 brothers, and I have got now special arrows for killing these 5 chivalrous brothers. So Duryodhana was very intelligent. Please give me these 5 arrows for the night. I shall deliver them to you tomorrow morning. All right. And Bhishma said, take them. But Krishna understood. He knows everything, past, present, and future. Krishna knew that Bhishma has now promised to kill all the Pandavas. So he asked Arjuna, this is also politics, Prabhupada says, that you go to Duryodhana. Do you remember that Duryodhana once vowed, Arjuna, whenever you want something, I shall give you? Now at this time, remind Duryodhana of his words. He has 5 arrows for killing you. You ask him for them and bring them to me. That evening, after the day's fight, the warriors acted as friends. So Arjuna went to the camp of Duryodhana and was well received. Well, Arjuna, come on. What do you want? Come on, sit down. Do you want anything from me? If you want, I can stop this fight. I can return to you the kingdom if you wish. Arjuna said, no, I have not come to you for begging my kingdom. The fighting will go on. But do you remember your promise to me? Duryodhana replied, yes, I know. Whatever you want, I offer you. Now Arjuna said, I want those 5 arrows. Duryodhana at once delivered the arrows, knowing Krishna was behind Arjuna's request. When Bhishma heard of Arjuna's begging these 5 arrows, he thought, Krishna is very cunning also. He will save his devotee, so he has done this. All right, Krishna has broken my promise. And tomorrow I will make Krishna break his promise to not fight. If Krishna does not break his promise, then his friend Arjuna will be killed. I will fight in such a way. So in the battle that day, Bhishma fought so powerfully that Arjuna was almost killed. His chariot was torn into pieces, and Arjuna fell down. And then Krishna took up one of his wheels of the chariot and rushed before Bhishma. Now, Bhishma, you stop this fighting, otherwise I will kill you. Bhishma at once gave up his arrows and offered, all right. Kill me. Bhishma had promised, I shall kill Arjuna tomorrow. And Krishna had also promised not to fight. So just to save these two devotees, Arjuna and Bhishma, he rushed to Bhishma to kill him. Krishna thought that, quote, either I shall break my promise to not fight, or I shall kill Arjuna. So better I break my promise. In this way, sometimes to protect his devotee, Krishna sometimes breaks his promise. Srila Prabhupada ki. Okay, so let us go to this last point that I wanted to make. Let me just find it. Okay. It's so nice. Okay, here we go. So, the Sutta Goswami says, thus Bhishma merged himself into the Supersoul Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with his mind, speech, sight, and actions. And thus he became silent, and his breathing stopped. Now listen to this. This is very important for all of us. Hearing is the most important item of all, and therefore hearing the Bhagavad Gita and later Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is essential for the serious candidate who wants to attain the stage of Bhīṣmadeva at the end. So now listen to this sentence. Ready? The unique situation at Bhīṣmadeva's time of death. What's unique about the situation? Krishna's right there. The unique situation at Bhīṣmadeva's time of death can be attained even though Lord Krishna is not personally present. His words of the Bhagavad Gita and of those of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam are identical with the Lord. They are the sound incarnation of the Lord, and one can fully utilize them to be entitled to attain this stage of Bhīṣmadeva. So if we hear, Prabhupada said all we need are these 4 books. What are the 4 books? Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Nectar of Devotion. That's enough to have the same benediction that Bhīṣmadeva attained by having Krishna's personal darshan. By regularly having the darshan of Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Nectar of Devotion. Everything is there. Everything is there. Prabhupada was so kind to give us everything. And he said here, we can get the same stage as Bhīṣmadeva. I mean, what a special benediction. Krishna himself came to when he was leaving. But that same benediction we can get because Krishna appears in the pages of the Bhagavatam. In the 5th chapter of the 1st canto, Prabhupada thanks Narada Muni for kindly appearing on the pages of the Bhagavatam. So it's a living thing, the Bhagavatam. Right? I heard Radha Swami once joke, it's not Bhagavad Gita as it is, just keep it on the shelf as it is. Right? We should take it down and read it regularly, and then we can get the same benediction. Jai. So we have a few minutes. Any questions or comments? You already asked one, so let's see if there's anyone else. Who? Oh, yes. Please pass the mic. Jitamrit.
I may speak in Hindi. Somebody can translate for you into English. तो यहाँ पर आज के दिन जो भीष्मदेव ने अपना शरीर छोड़ा, तो महाभारत में लिखा हुआ है कि भीष्मदेव जब शरीर छोड़ रहे हैं आज के दिन, तो कृष्ण से कह रहे हैं कि मुझे 58 दिन हो गया है बाणों की सैया पर सोते हुए। अब मैंने सोचा कि 58 दिन कैसे हुआ, क्योंकि अग्रहायण शुक्ल पक्ष की एकादशी को तो युद्ध शुरू हुआ था, मोक्षदा एकादशी को युद्ध शुरू हुआ था, और 10वें दिन भीष्म जी की सरसैया हुई, तो 58 दिन तो नहीं होते हैं। फिर मुझे विचार आया कि भीष्मदेव उस दिन से गिन रहे हैं 58 दिन जिस दिन से युद्ध शुरू हुआ था, क्योंकि भीष्मदेव का जो युद्ध है पहले दिन से जो शुरू हुआ था, उसी दिन से उनके शरीर में बाण जो है आर पार हो रहे थे। तो उस दिन से अगर आप हिसाब लगाएं तो आज 58 दिन होते हैं। आप तारीख से भी आप निश्चित कर सकते हैं कि 7 दिसंबर को मोक्षदा एकादशी थी, आज 2 तारीख है। 7 दिसंबर को भी मिला करके अगर आप आज का दिन अगर आप गिनते हैं तो पूरे 58 दिन होते हैं। तो हरि बोल। तो उन्होंने 58 दिन बताया। और दूसरी बात ये भी बताई जाती है कि उत्तरायण का वो जो है प्रतीक्षा कर रहे थे कि भीष्मदेव को उत्तरायण की आवश्यकता नहीं थी। जो शुद्ध भक्त होते हैं वो कृष्ण का स्मरण करते हैं, अनन्य चेता सतम जो माम स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहम सुलभा पार्थ। प्रभुपाद ने भी उत्तरायण की प्रतीक्षा नहीं की, दक्षिणायन में ही शरीर छोड़ा। कितना 14 नवंबर थी, हाँ, तो दक्षिणायन में शरीर छोड़ा। तो भीष्मदेव के लिए भी कोई आवश्यकता नहीं थी कि उत्तरायण की प्रतीक्षा करें। लेकिन जो बड़े बड़े महर्षि थे उन्होंने जो है ये मतलब शिकायत की कि भीष्मदेव क्यों इस समय शरीर छोड़ रहे हैं, क्योंकि भीष्मदेव को शिक्षा देने ऐसे योगियों को जो भक्त नहीं हैं लेकिन अपने प्राणों को वो जो है वश में कर सकते हैं, तो किस प्रकार से उनको शरीर छोड़ना चाहिए। तो भीष्मदेव ने ये जो उत्तरायण की प्रतीक्षा की ये अपने लिए नहीं थी, उनकी आवश्यकता नहीं थी, और केवल उन योगियों के लिए जो कि भक्त नहीं हैं लेकिन अपनी जो प्राण शक्ति है उसको नियंत्रित कर सकते हैं ब्रह्मचर्य के द्वारा। तो इस तरह से उन्होंने उत्तरायण की प्रतीक्षा की। फिर उत्तरायण जो महीना है, उत्तरायण के जो 6 महीने हैं वो तो शुरू हो गए थे मकर संक्रांति के दिन से। तो 14 जनवरी या 15 जनवरी को उत्तरायण शुरू हो गया। लेकिन उत्तरायण ही पर्याप्त नहीं है, क्योंकि भगवान गीता में कहते हैं अग्निर्ज्योतिर्हा शुक्ला षण्मासा उत्तरायणम। उत्तरायण के 6 महीने होने चाहिए, लेकिन शुक्ल पक्ष का भी जो है 15 दिन होना चाहिए। तो जब उत्तरायण शुरू होता है मकर संक्रांति के दिन, तो समय कृष्ण पक्ष चल रहा होता है। तो आज जो है माघ के शुक्ल पक्ष की अष्टमी तिथि है। तो शुक्ल पक्ष में भीष्मदेव ने शरीर छोड़ा, तो वो उत्तरायण की प्रतीक्षा कर रहे थे, फिर शुक्ल पक्ष की भी प्रतीक्षा कर रहे थे। और शुक्ल पक्ष में भी अष्टमी जो तिथि है वो बीच की तिथि होती है। शुक्ल पक्ष का बिल्कुल बीच का दिन होता है 8वां, 15 दिन में 8वां 20 दिन। तो आज के दिन उन्होंने शरीर छोड़ा। और दूसरी बात यह है कि जब भगवान कृष्ण को जो है युधिष्ठिर महाराज ने रोक लिया, बहुत स्नेहपूर्वक वो महाभारत के युद्ध के साथ बात जा रहे थे, तो फिर उत्तराई भगवान के श्रीमद्-भागवत में आता है, उत्तराई भगवान को पुकारने लगी कि मेरे गर्भ में जो ब्रह्मास्त्र है वो मेरे बालक को नष्ट कर रहा है। तो भगवान ने उत्तरा के गर्भ की रक्षा की। और उसके बाद फिर जब युधिष्ठिर महाराज शोक करने लगे कि अब मैं यह राज्य नहीं करूँगा, क्योंकि मेरे कारण ही सब मारे गए, इतने सैनिक मारे गए, इतनी स्त्रियाँ विधवा हुई, तो भगवान युधिष्ठिर के इस शोक को दूर करने के लिए भीष्मदेव के पास आए। और जो भीष्मदेव से जो है भगवान ने कहा कि आप युधिष्ठिर के शोक को दूर करिए। तो भीष्मदेव बोले, महाभारत के अनुसार बता रहा हूँ, भीष्मदेव बोले कि आपके होते हुए मैं कैसे उपदेश दे सकता हूँ, आप तो सबसे बड़े अधिकारी हैं उपदेश देने के। तो भगवान कहते हैं कि देखो मैं तुम्हारा यश बढ़ाना चाहता हूँ, तुम जो है उपदेश दो युधिष्ठिर महाराज को, क्योंकि मेरा यश तो पहले से ही फैला हुआ है कि मैं बुद्धि को प्रेरणा देता हूँ, मैं बुद्धि का प्रेरक हूँ। तो इस रूप में तो मेरा यश पहले से फैला हुआ है, तो आपको मैं यश देना चाहता हूँ, आप जो है युधिष्ठिर महाराज को ज्ञान दीजिए। तो भीष्म जी कहते हैं कि मैं बाणों की सैया में पड़ा हुआ बहुत कष्ट का अनुभव कर रहा हूँ, मुझे बहुत कष्ट हो रहा है, तो मैं ऐसी स्थिति में कैसे उपदेश दूँ, और मेरी बुद्धि भी एकाग्र नहीं है। तो भगवान कहते हैं कि मेरी कृपा से आपको बाणों का कोई कष्ट नहीं होगा, आपको बाणों, आपके शरीर में जो बाण चुभे हुए हैं इनका कोई कष्ट नहीं होगा, और आपकी बुद्धि भी एकाग्र होगी, और आप बड़े अच्छी प्रकार से आप उपदेश दे सकते हैं। तो भगवान कृष्ण ने युधिष्ठिर भीष्मदेव को इस प्रकार से आज्ञा दी। और उसके बाद महाभारत में भी वर्णन है कि आज के दिन जब वो शरीर छोड़ने वाले थे तो अपने प्राणों को ऊपर चढ़ा रहे हैं। तो प्राणों को ऊपर चढ़ा रहे हैं, तो पैर के तलवे से प्राण जैसे जैसे ऊपर बढ़ते गए, तो उसी प्रकार से उनके शरीर के बाण भी निकलते गए और घाव भी बढ़ता गया। तो पैरों से शुरू किया, प्राण जो है वो उन्हें चढ़ाना पैरों से शुरू किया, तो पैरों के बाण निकल गए, घुटने से ऊपर आए तो वहाँ से बाण निकल गए, फिर कमर तक बाण को प्राण को चढ़ाया तो वो सब बाण निकल गए, और अपने आप बाण निकलते जा रहे हैं और घाव भरते जा रहे हैं। और इस प्रकार से प्राणों को जब सिर में चढ़ाया, सिर के ऊपरी हिस्से में चढ़ाया उन्होंने, तो पूरे बाण जो है निकल चुके थे और शरीर बिल्कुल घाव रहित हो चुका था। ऐसी स्थिति में भीष्मदेव ने शरीर छोड़ा। हरे कृष्णा।
Shri Bhīṣmadeva ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai.
So let's all thank His Grace Vraja Bihari Prabhu for an entertaining, enlivening, informative and inspiring and above all totally spiritual